Thanks for tuning in to our newest video blog presentation. I want to thank you for being with us once again. Our topic for today, how do you spell sleep relief? How do you spell insomnia relief? It is a huge problem. 30% of our population battles sleep problems. Everything from mild sleep disturbances, I can't get to sleep, I fall asleep, I wake up, to difficulties with no sleep all the way through. So there's major issues. 30% of our population, up to 15% of our population or more is on prescription medications to deal with insomnia and sleep problems. And there's untold numbers that are using over-the-counter medications, sleep aids, antihistamines, even natural preps. I don't even know that we could calculate the percentage of folks that are using some type of sleep aid product. How do you spell sleep relief? So we're going to get into the functional aspects of this, some of the key triggers, some of the things that you can do to help yourself. So stay tuned, we're going to get into that. The big issue, let's rule out the first couple things. Triggers from what you might be doing. Caffeine, too much caffeine. Alcohol. Alcohol is an initial calming agent as it activates the GABA-minergic system in the brain, the GABA. The problem is when you drink, after you have alcohol, you have an initial calming effect, then there's literally a withdrawing effect, and it can almost spiral you back to making you more hyperactive. Alcohol does not induce long-term sleep. It may improve latency, meaning the time that you get to sleep, doesn't improve sleep endurance. Caffeine, obviously a stimulant. People say, well, I drink it early in the morning. Some people are very slow metabolizers of caffeine, or how you break it down. So it may still be with you 10, 12, 14 hours later. If you're drinking coffee, you need to be very, very careful and you're having a sleep problem. Oral contraceptives can be a problem because there's depletion of a lot of your B-complex vitamins, B6, folic acid, B12, and the Bs are intimately involved in neurotransmitter production, how I make neurotransmitters. We'll get to neurotransmitters in a few minutes. Chocolate. Stimulant, anything that's a stimulant to the body. Chronic pain, restless leg syndrome, hypoglycemia, reactive hypoglycemia. There are many individuals that are suffering from a type of reactive hypoglycemia, meaning that you have a blood sugar that is dropping through the course of the night. Your liver and your blood sugar balancing internal mechanisms, your capabilities to balance your blood sugars, are not where they need to be. As blood sugar drops, there's a surge in stimulatory neurotransmitters. You become hyperstimulated. You have a surge of cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. These are stimulatory. They are awakening, in particular, cortisol. So you say, well, geez, how do I know that I have? We'll kind of talk a little bit about that. Medications, beta blockers can be another medication. Pot smoking, believe it or not, can create some difficulties with sleep. So that's just to give you an overview. The other thing I want to make sure that you understand, this is not an all-inclusive scenario. I can't cover in 15 to 17 minutes every single aspect. We're going to try to hit the highs, getting away from the low points, all the highs, to try to bring you some relief from your sleep disturbances. Next, the effects of insomnia. Many of us just think, okay, I just don't sleep well. Well, it's bigger than that. Your problem's bigger than that. It's documented that there's bone marrow, get fancy here, progenitor cell damage. In other words, how your bone marrow is actually producing some of your white and red blood cells is actually damaged. It's proven in animal studies that your progenitor cells in your bone marrow are interfered with when we have interfered sleep or poor sleep, broken sleep patterns all the way through to insomnia. Number two, osteoporosis, believe it or not, is a result of chronic sleep disturbances. Many of you that might be listening to this are not aware of that. If you're not sleeping, there's a link to osteoporosis. Third area, diabetes risk goes up threefold. Your insulin sensitivity goes down. You become insulin resistant, which is bad, which can play into that whole hypoglycemia situation. So now what we have is it's feeding itself. I have some difficulties with sleep. I'm going to get to what maybe are the real key triggers. But if I have some insulin resistance, I can then lead to hypoglycemic episodes during the course of the night, which now stimulates all these stimulatory, keyword stimulatory neurotransmitters. I interfere with sleep. High blood pressure goes up. Type 2 diabetes risk goes up. Hypertension follows that, very, very closely tied to chronic insomnia. Immune impairment. This is a big thing with me. I did another video blog, and if you want to go back and look at it, it's stored in our archives here. How do you build your immune system? How do you spell immune system relief? Well, part of the problem is that we don't realize that we can't just supplement our way to health and sleep and immune system, but we've got to eat right, and we also have to know that if I don't sleep, I can interfere with how my immune system is actually going to respond to the supplementation that I take in. Your immune system, bone marrow is affected, bone health and strength, osteoporosis, type 2 diabetes risk, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, need I say any more? Sleep difficulties will damage your body. The last area, probably the most important, is human growth hormone production. You need to be able to sleep to be able to get to reparative, restorative sleep. I'm not going to deal a whole lot with REM and non-REM, REM sleep, where you literally go into your, you get into deeper sleep and your dreams, and the longer you're in REM sleep, your cycles of REM get longer. So that almost directly relates to repair. So if you're not getting into REM sleep, rapid eye movement, there's a very, very limited possibility that you're going to be able to repair. Now, how will you repair? Human growth hormone. Human growth hormone is produced when we sleep. If I'm not sleeping, I cannot make human growth hormone. Now, why is human growth hormone important? Well, it's very popular today amongst athletes, unfortunately, weightlifters, bodybuilders, folks that wanting to lose weight, folks wanting to stop the aging process. Not always possible. We can slow the process down. We can help our body be supported through that. But you could take all the supplements, do all the facial products that you want. If you do not sleep well, you will break down faster. Your bones will break down, as mentioned earlier. Your skeletal muscle will decline. You will add adipose or fat tissue. It is more difficult to remove adipose or fat tissue. The long and short of it is your repair mechanisms go down when you don't sleep. Your human growth hormone drops. Your ability to maintain what we would call anabolism, not catabolism, catabolic, means you're breaking down. If you don't have human growth hormone as a result of poor sleep, you will break down. Not only physiologically, your brain as well. When you sleep and you receive adequate amounts of sleep, your brain literally is repairing, and the key player in that as well is melatonin. So hopefully you're catching the drift that this is not just a matter of, I don't feel well, I'd like to get more sleep. There is a there is a corresponding physical response in your body with impaired sleep. I don't want to scare you, and I don't want to wow you. I want to help you. That's the whole concept behind these video blogs, and we're going to continue to go through these, and we're trying to pick areas that are important to your health. How do you spell heartburn relief? How do you spell fatigue relief? What is involved with that? We did that in a previous video blog. How do you spell sleep relief? I hope you're catching my drift as to what we're attempting and trying to do. Let's move on to some of the concepts with sleep, quickly, briefly. In other words, why do I sleep? I kind of just talked about that, repair. Why we sleep is because we have a normal, God-given, built-in circadian rhythm, a time clock that literally is right at about 24 hours. Some of us can have our circadian rhythms knocked off. Sometimes a little bit of melatonin at night. I don't want to get into all the therapeutic aspects right now, but sometimes a little bit of melatonin can help to reset your circadian rhythm. A lot of us just have our circadian rhythm that's been shifted forward, and our days from a clock, an internal clock standpoint, have been elongated, if you will. Circadian rhythm, 24-hour, that's where we should live, that's where we should function. Neurotransmitters. If anybody talks to you about poor sleep or lack of sleep and doesn't talk about neurotransmitters, they're not worth their weight. If you do not manage neurotransmitters, it literally is impossible to support and help your sleep processes. We do urinary neurotransmitter testing. We do saliva hormone testing that can evaluate cortisol levels and melatonin. The urinary neurotransmitters can evaluate GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, which is a naturally produced, we call it endogenous, internally produced inhibitory brain neurotransmitter, is a calming agent. Serotonin is a calming agent, helps to keep you calm, keeps your mood, etc. Amino acids like glycine and taurine are calming agents. Then you have stimulatory neurotransmitters, norepinephrine, epinephrine, glutamate, histamine, they're stimulatory. There has to be a relative balance. If the stimulatory side dominates, you will have impaired sleep. If your cortisol levels, because of stress, I haven't even really talked about that. If your stress levels are high, your cortisol rises, it is impossible for you to make melatonin. Doesn't happen, can't happen. When stress is overwhelming you and cortisol is surging, they are opposite and equal. In other words, early in the day, cortisol is high, melatonin is low. As the day goes through, as you wind through the day and move into the night, they begin to literally juxtapose one another. As cortisol drops, melatonin now rises, inducing sleep. What happens if my cortisol, according to my rhythm and because of stress, doesn't drop? Let's say it gets stuck. I cannot make I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care what you've watched on TV or anybody listening to anybody's talk show. If you have elevated cortisol at night, it is physiologically almost impossible. That's why a lot of drugs don't work. So if you don't manage your neurotransmitters, you're in big trouble. That's a whole other issue. We're not going to get into the body of that right now. REM sleep, non-REM, kind of talked about that to some degree. You've got to get into REM sleep, rapid eye movement. You'll dream. It's deeper sleep. The longer you stay asleep, the greater potential for you to get into longer phases. When you continue to repeat, you go in and out of REM. The longer you sleep, the longer you stay in REM, the more you repair. Now, we don't want you sleeping 12, 13 hours a day, but I think you get my message. So let's move on. What are the keys? The keys are, to me, there's no single bullet. There's no one magical way that you handle this. Number two, you've got to, in some cases, if you try some basic, and I have a lot of things set out here, and this is not to overwhelm you. What am I going to do? Take 7 different, I didn't even put melatonin out here, I don't think. What am I going to do? Take 7 different supplements? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm going to attempt to step you through some simple approaches, so don't be overwhelmed by that. Simply put, if we try some basic preps and we can't improve sleep, then we have to do a neurotransmitter or an adrenal stress test, which is via saliva or via urine. Let's move on. I'm getting signals to wrap this up and move forward. Quickly, I mentioned before norepinephrine. I didn't talk about PEA, stimulatory neurotransmitters, high cortisol, high epinephrine. And I want to stress that because if you try some simple supportive mechanisms and you don't get relief, then you've got to move on to the testing. So I hope I'm making myself clear there. So let's kind of move on for that. Let's get into the help phase, the help phases. And what I mean by that is, what can I legitimately do to help induce sleep? First of all, it's supposed to occur. It's God ordained. You're supposed to do it. We know there's a physiologic, there's an immunologic response when I don't sleep. It's very clear. So how do we help you to sleep? First of all, eliminate the stimulatory components in your life. We talked about them. Chocolate, caffeine, anything that is stimulatory. Don't get into a major business or personal or family confrontation, phone call discussion at 10:30 at night. Don't confront a friend or a business partner about something late at night. That's going to impair your sleep. Don't be on the computer late at night. Don't watch movies that are antagonizing or disturbing to you late at night. It stays with us. Don't do things that upset the normal circadian rhythm. Food allergies. And there are some folks that I've worked with through the course of years that have food allergies that are stimulatory. A food allergy can manifest as a skin condition or a skin rash, hives, dermatitises. It can manifest as intestinal and inflammatory and irritable bowel type syndromes. It can manifest as headaches and migraines. It can also impair your sleep and interfere with blood sugars. So food allergies can be involved. Get rid of MSG. Processed foods, many of the fast food scenarios have MSG-related compounds, stimulatory to your brain. It's excitatory to the glutamate pathways in the brain, not what you want to do. Physical activity and exercise, I personally believe, is a root support mechanism and a help for you. Some people say don't do it at night. I don't buy that. I think what you don't do is do it right before you go to bed. If you want to exercise at night, because I've had folks say to me in consultations, well, I was told not to do that. I should only do it in the morning. I don't buy it. The morning works, great. If it doesn't, do it after work. Just don't do it at 10:30 at night before you want to go to bed. The other area, deep breathe. I think if many of us could just learn how to deep breathe, it would help us. Like right now, I'm not deep breathing because I'm talking too much and I'm talking too fast. Breathe like a baby. Watch your baby. Look at how your baby breathes. Look at your grandchild, how your grandchild breathes. They breathe with their diaphragm. They diaphragmatically breathe. Their whole literal torso moves when they breathe because their diaphragm is expanding. Their lungs are getting full capacity. That means you're bringing in as much oxygen as you can and you're eliminating as much CO2 as you can. When you get oxygen into the body and you express CO2, you'll make more serotonin. I mentioned earlier, serotonin is calming, right? It's a calmer, raises your mood, induces sleep, deep breathing. And you don't have to do this for 20 minutes. It could be 4 or 5 minutes at night before you go to bed. A salt and soda bath. Get some sea salts, magnesium and potassium and minerals. Put it in a bath. Relax. Hot water, warm water, relax. Drink gentle, relaxing herbal teas. That's a great way. There are chamomiles and valerian and there's skullcap. There are numerous natural teas that can help you. Read some Psalms. My personal belief, my belief system, I think we need to do things that are calming, not just to our brain, but to our inner man, to our spirit man. Big, big help. Balance your blood sugar. Some of you might need, and this is a little crazy, some of you might need to eat a light protein complex carb, a little bit of maybe nut butter, maybe in a slice of Ezekiel bread, or an apple with an almond or a butter, or a cashew butter, maybe an hour or so before you go to bed. Small amounts, and we're running way over. So let me get right to the supplement regime. The basics. If you're having sleep problems and you want to try some real basic things, I would say to you, you start with maybe a sleep support. It's a great concept. Natural agents, calming agents to help you sleep. So sleep support might be a starting point. That fails, you might want to try some Cabanase Ultra PM. It has 5-hydroxytryptophan, it's got a little bit of melatonin, it's got a specific form of GABA that is more absorbable, crosses the blood-brain barrier, as opposed to straight GABA, which does not. So those are generic sleep support preps. What are some simple things that you can do just simply to try to induce sleep? Straight L5-HTP. We use a European-sourced L from the Graphonia plant, 5-HTP. Great help. Why? You induce and make more serotonin. With serotonin, you have a greater chance to make melatonin. Remember we talked about cortisol, melatonin. Something that helps you convert this, believe it or not, is niacin. So in some cases, it might just be, I'm going to try some simple quality form of L5-HTP with niacinamide or niacin maybe an hour before bed. 1, 2, maybe up to 3 of these, and maybe 2 of the niacinamides. So you're catching my drift. I'm going to try a generic sleep prep. I'm going to try, if that doesn't work, maybe get more specific. Magnesium. We've talked a lot about magnesium. I always call it God's natural calming agent. This is a wonderful, what shall I say, habit for you to get into. For any of you, I take 3 or 4 every night before I go to bed. It's a calming agent. It calms the brain. Magnesium counteracts glutamate hyperexcitability in the brain. So this is something you can do generically. Phosphatidylserine. If you have high levels of cortisol, you're under a huge stress load, work, demands, family, home life, and you're surging cortisol. We talked about that. High cortisol will drop melatonin. Phosphatidylserine helps to attenuate or counteract that stimulation that is coming from the cortisol. And I forgot I had my headset in, but that's okay. You don't mind. Mood Guard. The only reason I put Mood Guard in here, it's methionine. It has glycine that's a calming agent. It has some magnesium. And I'll tell you what else it really has that's an interesting concept, or what this can do, rather. One of the ways that you convert your serotonin to melatonin is with methionine, because you make SAMe, S-adenylmethionine. So this is kind of a little trick that you can use sometimes just to induce sleep, maybe some L5-HTP, and maybe some Mood Guard can help. Calming agents plus forces conversion of this serotonin over to melatonin. So it may sound confusing. And the reason why, because remember I said at the beginning, there's no one single bullet answer. That may seem confusing. There's a few products that you can try if you're having sleep problems. Follow the little things I talked about. Read some Psalms, deep breathing, salt and soda baths. Exercise is okay, just don't do it right before bed. You've got to follow a basic plan. Get rid of MSG and processed foods. Watch the amount of stimulatory foods like caffeine, chocolates, sugar. Sugar is a death knell because it's stimulating blood sugar releases. You're causing a flood of stimulatory neurohormones, not your friend if you have sleep problems. I hope this little video blog has helped you, and I hope that you can acquire some benefit. If you're still having difficulties, you may need to set up an appointment time where we can literally do a couple simple tests. A urinary test for neurotransmitters, a saliva hormone panel that will follow your cortisol rhythms, will follow your DHEA rhythms. We can also do a melatonin as well. Thanks so much for watching this video blog. I hope it helps you. God bless you. See you on the next blog.